We are only a couple of weeks away from Disney Dreamlight Valley's showcase, and I thought before the showcase we could have a little chat and discussion about some of my thoughts and predictions for the potentially upcoming DLC. Now, naturally, this discussion will include talk of leaked information, spoilers from the in-game storyline, and so forth. So if you don't want to be spoiled, if you have no interest in leaked information, then feel free to skip this video. But yeah, I really want to have a bit of a discussion with you all. So hello guys. Now before I get into my thoughts, I'm just going to briefly go over some of the stuff we do know from either in-game or stuff that was leaked in the Dreamlight Valley Leaks Discord, just to kind of catch everyone up on what we know. Now, not only have I covered some of this, some other content creators out there have done so as well. So this information is widely out there and known, and you can also see the information in the Dreamlight Leaks Discord. So I will have that linked in the description below for you. So the first thing that I want to recap on is a teaser trailer that came at the end of the current Rift in Time DLC. During this teaser clip, we see a book flip through a couple of pages on a pedestal surrounded by candles with a torn tapestry in the background showing Maleficent and Hades. So we do sort of pretty much know that this DLC is going to feature these two villains, much like how Jafar was confirmed for a Rift in Time with his teaser at the end of the main storyline. Then, due to the efforts of multiple leakers in the Discord, we're actually able to learn some more information about the potential name of the world or what it's being sort of coded under, which is going to potentially be Storybook Vale. We also got some pretty cool audio files, and we also got some titles potentially for quests. Maybe they're links to sort of like memories or something like that. But a couple of the key things that they make reference to is Trial Colossus, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Once Upon a Time, and Aurora. So with this information, my brain has literally been working overtime to theorize about what could be coming in the next DLC. Now, for some people, you know, they might not care about that stuff, but I personally love theorizing, predicting, speculating and stuff like that. I do think it's fun. I like to see if I'm right or wrong. Most of the times I'm probably wrong, but I do still love to guess, and I find a lot of enjoyment in that. So I hope you can stick around with me and hear me out on this. Obviously, if you disagree, that is totally fine. In fact, I encourage you to leave your own opinions in the comments below. Just make sure if we're talking to others that we're being kind and respectful. We're all welcome to our own thoughts, opinions and guesses. And at the moment, basically nothing is confirmed until the showcase. So it's all a bit of fun up at this point kind of thing. But yeah, let's discuss my thoughts on this. Now, my first thought comes down to from basically the potential name of this world, Storybook Vale. Now, I recently learned of Storybook Land from playing Disneyland Adventures. I didn't have much knowledge of the park, so this was my first introduction to this ride that they have. Now, the reason why I think this Storybook Land ride is so relevant to the DLC is that the name is just so familiar to Storybook Vale. Like, they're literally like synonyms or whatever the word is, you know. Vale and land are very interchangeable, and obviously storybook and storybook, they're the same. And we do know that Gameloft love taking inspiration from the parks. Not only do we have many parks inspired items and buildings, we also have Miss Tilly in the Rift in Time DLC. So it is highly likely that they take a lot of influence from the parks. Now, in regards to the Storybook Land sort of ride, basically there's a few different miniature worlds and scenes that you see as you travel on a boat through this little canal, basically. And it covers many different sort of films, fairy tales, things like that. So it covers the Three Little Pigs, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Aladdin, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella, Lullaby Land, which is from the Silly Symphony short, The Wind in the Willows, Frozen, Pinocchio, and also The Little Mermaid. Now, there is also a version in Disneyland Paris, which is called Le Pays des Contes de Fées. And also, sorry for butchering the pronunciation there, I'm sure it's awful. I have actually gone on this ride, so I know about it from experience. The settings on this ride are Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Winnie the Pooh, Rapunzel, the Old Mill, the Little Mermaid, the Greek Temple and Mount Olympus, along with the Night on Bald Mountain from Fantasia, Frozen, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Sword in the Stone, and also Up. So as I said, I have actually gone on this ride. I went on this ride specifically to check out the miniatures. It said it was like a 15-minute queue or something. We were in that queue for almost an hour, if not more. So I was dedicated to doing the research for this, guys. I was dedicated, okay? That was probably the longest queue I was in at for Disneyland Paris. Well, apart from the queue for food that we had one day. But like in terms of rides, that was our longest queue. It was absolutely wild, to be honest. Now, ignoring that, looking at these different films and shorts, I think some of these can easily be eliminated from predictions, in my opinion. We already have most of the cast of Frozen, same for Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, so pretty much can ignore those as options, I think. But where does that leave us in terms of predictions and theories? Well, in my opinion, my thoughts are that Storybook Vale feels really fairy tale kind of story inspired. You know, the choice of storybook, it feels like it has to be about tales, about stories themselves, at least in my thoughts. And I do feel like films like Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland work really well with this story theming, given their basis being written stories and tales, not just creations from Disney. Obviously there's others, you know, Snow White and stuff like that, and Cinderella, they're inspired by like Grimm's fairy tales and stuff like that, so they also count too. But sort of focusing on these three, I personally think Peter Pan will be tied to Skull Rock. To me, Skull Rock and Peter Pan are just basically, they're so tied together and interlinked that I would eliminate that from my personal prediction. When it comes to something like Cinderella, I think we are going to get a realm for Cinderella. I think they're going to try their best to do realms for most of the films. Or at least I would think that's what they would want to do. But I could very, very well be wrong. Now, back to the initial three that I was talking about there. I do see a high chance of Winnie the Pooh or Alice in Wonderland characters coming with this DLC. Personally, I think Alice in Wonderland is slightly more likely. Now, why do I think this? Well, the first clue is actually in the teaser trailer. Behind Maleficent's character on the tapestry, we see some weird purple structures. And at first when I saw these, they look like weird like fish tails, but it makes no sense. But obviously looking at it in more detail, I think these could potentially be like mushrooms. They don't feel shaped like trees, which is why I'm kind of ignoring that option of them just being some kind of tree thing. They feel like they're something significant, and I think that they could be mushrooms. And I tried looking into every Disney film with some connection for mushrooms, and the biggest connection I can think of is Alice in Wonderland. Not only that, but over 1 year ago, in April of 2023, Disney Dreamlight put out a survey, and guess who was mentioned in that survey? Alice in Wonderland. Now, of course, lots of other films were mentioned too. Wreck-It Ralph, which we do have Vanellope. We don't have Ralph yet, but we do have Vanellope. Cinderella, we've got Fairy Godmother, but no Cinderella. 101 Dalmatians, which aren't in the game. Up's not in the game. Mickey and Friends additional characters, we do have some more. You know, we've got Daisy and stuff like that. Nightmare Before Christmas, we have Jack already and Sally's coming. Alice in Wonderland, obviously. Winnie the Pooh. Aladdin, which we do have Jafar, but we don't have, you know, the good guys, you know, Aladdin and Jasmine. Monsters Inc. we have. Mulan we have. Peter Pan we don't have, but like I said, I think he's tied to Skull Rock whenever we get that update next year. Beauty and the Beast additional characters, well, we do have Gaston. Atlantis, Hercules, Finding Nemo, Princess and the Frog, which we do have Tiana. The Incredibles, Emperor's New Groove, Tangled, which we do now have Rapunzel, Pirates of the Caribbean, Toy Story, which we have, and Sleeping Beauty. Now, since the April survey, as I said, we've got Fairy Godmother, Vanellope, Beauty and the Beast, Nightmare Before Christmas, Daisy, Gaston, Jafar, Eve, Rapunzel, Oswald, Mike and Sully, Mulan, Tiana, and Jafar. So that's a lot from that initial list. That's a lot of characters that tie up to that very same list. We could only pick, I think it was like 3 or 5 options from the survey, but I think that heavily influenced the direction that Gameloft took for the past year's worth of content. We have lots of films mentioned in the survey that we then got in game. By this logic, I think the most recent survey we had about 3 months ago could also hold the key to future characters. So let's take a look at what films were mentioned in the survey from 3 months ago. They were 101 Dalmatians, Aladdin, Emperor's New Groove, Alice in Wonderland, Star Wars, Jungle Book, Robin Hood, Cars, Snow White, Hercules, The Muppets, Winnie the Pooh, The Incredibles, Pinocchio, Zootopia, and Cinderella. Now, most importantly, they also asked how we would like to see these characters added, either via Realm, DLC, or Questline. So I think it's very important that they did ask that, and that kind of would help sway them as to what people might be happy to pay for, and therefore what might be better in a DLC potentially, or what might not be. Now, later in the survey, they also asked about specific characters, and some extra characters they mentioned but not covered under those films we've talked about were Peter Pan, Finding Nemo characters, Kim Possible, Jack Sparrow, more Toy Story people like Lumiere, Beauty and the Beast, more Toy Story characters, I think, like Bo Peep and stuff, more Beauty and the Beast characters like Lumiere and Cogsworth, Rafiki, Ralph from Wreck-It Ralph. So I think we might see a couple of characters from these films in the DLC and some to come in free-to-play updates next year. Now, both Alice in Wonderland and Winnie the Pooh have been mentioned twice across these 2 surveys, and both feature in either the story book Land Ride or Le Pays de Contest de Fées. So I think we could see someone from these films feature in the DLC, and my inkling is an Alice in Wonderland character. Now, as a side note, I'm just going to put this in. I would really hope we get Robin Hood at some point. I have a feeling that might be less likely for the DLC, to be honest. I don't think it's likely. But fingers crossed for a next year update. That would be amazing. That's like high up there on my wants, would be a Robin Hood to come to the Valley along with Maid Marian. I'm like keeping my fingers crossed about that. Now, my next theory and prediction also ties into these boat rides, specifically the one in Paris, which showcases 2 scenes from Fantasia, the Olympus sequence, which would cross over perfectly with Hades, because obviously the direct tie to Olympus and Greek lore and history kind of thing. So there's that, and also the Night on Bald Mountain sequence, which features Chernabog, who is sort of coming to the game already as a premium shop item. Now, before the leaks about the premium shop items, I did think Chernabog could perhaps feature in the new realm, the new world, a bit like Miss Tilly's boat in the Rift in Time DLC. But now he's a premium shop item. I'm less confident on that. I'm not so sure, to be honest, but I think the connection can still be there. Not only that, I was rewatching Fantasia, Sleeping Beauty, and Hercules, and I think some of the backdrops across the movies and the teaser trailer we got are similar. So on Maleficent's side of the tapestry, we do see some long, thin trees in the sort of dark background. Now, not only is this similar to Sleeping Beauty, which features a lot of tall, thin trees, but during the Night on Bald Mountain sequence, when it shifts to day and the Ave Maria musical number comes in, we see shadows of people wandering through a woodland landscape. And that also features tall, long, thin trees. And if we look at the Olympus sequence, we see a brighter setting featuring some uniquely rounded trees and temple-type structures, which look similar to the background where Hades is featured. Now, I admit this must seem like clutching at straws or whatever it's called, but when we factor in what the leakers found in relation to those like quest tales, where it mentions the Sorcerer's Apprentice, we get even more of a Fantasia tie-in, because the Sorcerer's Apprentice is also a sequence in Fantasia. Now, not only that, but I do have to do a big shout out to Oscar's Cozy Corner here, because he actually did a video about the Loungefly backpacks and their potential indication of the future of the game, and I really think he's onto something. We have Maleficent confirmed and we have the Maleficent dragon backpack, so why not also Sorcerer Mickey? We got a fresh new skin for Mickey in the Rift in Time DLC, so I could totally see us getting another iconic skin for Mickey this DLC, and Sorcerer Mickey would be perfect for that, especially with the quest tale. It all ties in together. So therefore, I do think Fantasia will have an impact this update. I think with a Mickey skin, and I'm also hoping perhaps we might be lucky and get some cute little kind of like Pegasus companions. That would be my dream. I would love that. I also think the sort of like Night on Bald Mountain, the Mount Olympus scene and stuff like that are possibly going to influence some of the backdrops for the biomes in the Rift in Time DLC. So yeah, these are my predictions from my limited knowledge on the storybook land ride and Le Pays de Contes de Fées. Now, moving on from that, I do think we could potentially see a couple of characters related to Hercules and Sleeping Beauty. With the addition of the villains from these films, it would be nice to perhaps get some of the good characters from those films as well. Now, I noticed Aurora and Prince Philip weren't mentioned in the survey, but Hercules was. So could this be a confirmation that Aurora is already coming by the lack of their presence in the survey? I think tied in with the questline sort of names, it's very, very possible. Now, I think sort of like just a personal guess, we might have a couple of hidden surprise characters, a bit like Oswald was when he came to the DLC. So yeah, possibly we might have some surprise characters as well as whatever they show in the showcase. So perhaps they could use the survey to decide on a hidden character to come later in the DLC. I would assume they have an overarching storyline already in place and planned for the DLC, but I'm pretty sure switching out some characters might not be too hard based on survey responses. They could probably alter the storyline a little bit just to make it more fitting for the character, but I could see them potentially doing that. Now, one of the last things that I kind of want to touch on is Snow White. I did have a feeling we could potentially get her with the DLC, but if we do get Aurora, I think it's less likely that we get Snow White. I just have a feeling that we're not going to get multiple princesses from a DLC, especially to have two of the main princesses. I do have a feeling she's coming to the game. I reckon she might come around March next year to tie into the live action movie's release. I think that's March. But yeah, I just want to make it clear that it would be the animated version we get, but we have seen Gameloft do sort of movie release tie-ins, you know. They did the Inside Out event time with Inside Out 2, so I think to help booster talk of Snow White and promote it, adding her character to the game would be kind of like perfect timing. And obviously she's a good tie-in in terms of like the boat rides and the storybook theme and the timings for the promotion. But with more clues leading to Aurora, I think it's less likely. Anyway, that's a lot of information. So I guess to recap my main points, I think we could see a lot of Fantasia influence on the DLC in terms of settings, perhaps an indication to a new companion or critter, however you want to refer to it. And I also think a new Mickey skin in the form of Sorcerer Mickey. And that's based on the teaser that we had, the link to the Storybook Land ride, the current Loungefly backpack drops, and the leaked files that were found. I also think we could possibly see Alice from Alice in Wonderland come to the DLC, possibly with a slight influence on the biomes if we have like mushrooms or oversized plants and stuff. And that comes from what I've seen with the teaser trailer, the link to the Storybook Land ride, and of course the survey mentions. Winnie the Pooh was also likely due to the same sort of Storybook Land reference and surveys, but I think the chance of Alice coming is higher. Therefore, I think Winnie the Pooh is going to be a free update next year. I think we're also likely to get some form of Sleeping Beauty characters come to the DLC too. I mean, not just Maleficent, but I think perhaps Aurora herself. And that's based on the connection to Maleficent, the leaked information, the lack of mention in the most recent survey, which I thought was quite interesting. So I do think Sleeping Beauty, Aurora likely to come. Snow White's mention in the survey kind of makes me think she's going to come as a free update next year too, despite connections based on the survey. And obviously the Storybook Land ride and the live actions release and stuff like that. But I just think she's more likely as a free update because I don't think we're going to get two major princesses in a DLC. Peter Pan, whilst it could be connected via the Storybook Land ride and the surveys, I think has too much of a connection to Skull Rock, which should be an update next year, and since it is part of our main valley, I would therefore assume a free update. Now, we could also possibly see some characters from Hercules, but I think perhaps they could be a surprise character for later in the DLC. They are mentioned in the survey, so I think they are on the horizon to come. Meg isn't like a mainline princess, so she probably is a higher chance of coming over Snow White. But I definitely think we could see Hercules come in as a contrast to Hades and his villainous character. Well, that is everything I think for my predictions. It feels like a lot. I feel like I've rambled for a long time. So thank you for sticking with me through all of that. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Feel free to make your own predictions. We can always look back and see how right or wrong we were. I am so excited to hear what you all think, and I am even more excited for the showcase, which my plan is to live stream the showcase and give sort of like my live reactions to it and whatever they announce at that. I'm very excited to do that. I think that's going to be so much fun. So obviously, if you do want to be around for when I do that, then feel free to subscribe to the channel, you know, so you can stay up to date and notified and things like that. But I think this is my final predictions video, my final thoughts and theories before we do finally get that showcase. So I'm really excited. I'm like anticipating this event. Like I just want it to be here already. I honestly cannot wait for it. It's like this is the big event of the year kind of thing. So I am absolutely excited and ecstatic to see the showcase. I think it's going to be an absolutely wonderful time and event, and yeah, we'll just have to see how wrong I am or how right I am. I think we'll just have to wait and see. I hope I'm right, because I think it would lead to a very good DLC, but honestly only time will tell. And I think no matter what happens, I'm going to be happy. I'm so excited for the DLC to come. So yeah, I just can't wait. But yeah, as I said, don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. But thank you all so much for your time, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys!